The story begins with Souji Araki, the protagonist, being asked by two people if he was okay. After waking up, Souji asks where he was. With Souji awake, the two felt relieved and happy. Souji eventually remembers who he was, but was confused as to who the two people were. Souji recalled that he was focusing on his garden and was very happy to find a nicely shaped and beautiful eggplant, shining brightly under the sun. Souji's life took a turn when he was watching a random farming show, which led to him deciding to quit his company job on impulse. For 4 years, Souji lived stress-free as the farmer he always dreamed of being. For Souji, it was the absolute best decision he has ever made. Souji notices that there was a little scratch on the eggplant, which made him decide to not include the eggplant with the other shipments. However, he would instead eat the eggplant so that it wouldn't be a waste. After tending to the plant, Souji let his breath out and said, "That should do it." Talking to the plant, Souji orders for it to grow strong. Hearing his name being called and being told that he is working hard again, Souji turns and sees that it was Fujimoto. Drenched in sweat, Fujimoto tells Souji to not overdo it or he will end up with a heat stroke. Souji smiles, responding to Fujimoto and telling him that he is right and that he will take a break soon. With the intense heat, Souji finally decided to finish up his work. All of a sudden, Souji collapsed. Barely conscious, Souji wondered if what he is experiencing is called a heat stroke. Frustrated since he is unable to get up, Souji tries to call out for help, but his voice won't come out. Trying to reach the eggplant, Souji couldn't believe that he would face death in such a way. After losing his consciousness, Souji eventually woke up, asking himself if what he saw was him. Facing a different reality based on Souji's knowledge, he is just a young boy and the people in front of him are his parents. Souji's mother asks him what he was saying. With growing concern, Souji's father asks if they need to call a doctor. Souji tells his parents that there is no need to call a doctor since he is fine and that he is just half asleep. Souji's father glared at him, asking him if he wasn't lying, to which Souji responded that he wasn't. Overwhelmed with emotions, Souji's mother hugged him as she was really glad to hear that Souji is fine. With what had happened to Souji, he was told by his parents that he will just be resting for the day. With nothing to do in his room, Souji got bored. Trying to organize his thoughts, Souji remembers that he died of a heat stroke while farming. The Souji in his new life hit his head, which triggered his past life memories. With that, now both of Souji's past and present memories are mixed up. From what Souji concluded, he may have experienced reincarnation. From what Souji observed earlier was how his parents were crying. In his previous life, Souji's parents also worried about him a lot. After moving to the countryside, Souji barely kept in touch. Seeing how it would be pointless to start regretting his decisions, Souji only hopes that his parents would live long lives. Out of nowhere, Souji heard something which caught his attention. Opening the window, Souji was shocked to see flowers popping out of nowhere, which made him wonder if that was what everyone called magic. Looking up, Souji was astonished after seeing the vast land he was living in, thinking how incredible it looked. A world that has swords and magic, the first thing Souji thought of was that there are adventurers. However, Souji had no intentions of becoming an adventurer, but instead chose the dream of his previous life, which was to be a farmer. Seeing so many fields, Souji was very much eager to check them all out. Since the farm was just within his view, Souji thought that he might as well check it out. However, Souji stops himself after remembering Fujimoto's warning to not overdo it. Souji decides to return back to his bed, waiting until tomorrow to check everything out. Souji didn't want to die in a similar way again. For the time being, Souji only wanted some delicious vegetables. During dinner, Souji bites off a piece of bread and instantly notices how hard it was. The bread being hard as a rock, paired with plain soup with potato chunks, Souji tells himself that it is no longer about the cooking but rather the ingredients. Souji starts to wonder how his parents are okay with eating such meals every day. Souji's father calls his name, asking him if he now feels better. In response, Souji tells his father that he is, to which his father responds, "Good, good." Relieved, Souji's father then announces that he will head to the fields. Hearing that, Souji becomes excited and expresses wanting to help out. Both Souji's parents were speechless after hearing him offering help with the fields. Souji was then told by his father that he hated going to the fields before, wondering what made his decision change. Worried that something serious may have truly happened to Souji, his mother asks if she should call a doctor now. Souji explains how he just felt like moving his body after lying around for so long. Seeing how his parents react, Souji asks himself how he hated farming so much. Hearing Souji's explanation, both of his parents were relieved as they felt scared for a second with the sudden change. Excited, Souji suggests to his parents that they go together. Looking at a potato, Souji's first thought was how the crops looked weak, and even wondered if what he was holding was a potato. Souji wished that he had some kind of appraisal skill like what he had read in a manga before. Souji was shocked when a window suddenly appeared. Not expecting that what he did would actually work, Souji becomes a little confused after seeing the potato's name as Potato. Souji's father asks him what was wrong. Surprised, Souji responded, "Nothing," to which his father asked if that was really true. Souji notices how his father didn't react to the panel, which he then deduces that only he can see the window. Picking up some soil, Souji wonders if he can appraise it as well. Using his appraisal ability, Souji learned that the soil isn't that bad, which led him to believe that the reason why the crops looked weak was because of over-farming. Souji also tries to appraise his own status, which worked but was a little disappointed seeing how weak he is. Selecting the skills option, Souji was blinded by a bright light. Opening his eyes, Souji was in total disbelief as he realized that his skill lets him buy seeds from Earth and boost crop growth. With appraisal skill, a world seed storage, and growth boost, Souji believes that those are enough and perfect for farming. Souji states to forget about the knockoff potatoes as he plans to grow some real delicious potatoes. Souji corrects himself, as he was now dedicated to grow the best crops with his own hands, using the knowledge from his past life and with his new skills. What adds to Suji's advantage is the village, which is developing. With the right decision, Souji is certain that it can go even further. With Suji's own hands, he vows to make the village thrive. Souji dedicates himself to overturning everything the village thought they knew about farming, bringing an agricultural revolution to the world. In Suji's previous life, he was at a conference when he was told that his proposal was being dismissed due to it being impossible to achieve. Souji tries to object and points out how it is being deemed impossible without even trying. Seeing how the people started to react to what he said, Suji's confidence starts to crumble. Souji wavered after being told to accept the decision, and that what he is trying to achieve is impossible. Others also hinted to Souji that he had made the meeting twice as long and to read the room. Some even asked Souji if he even thought that a newbie's opinion would pass, and how Souji shouldn't have done what he did. Souji woke up from the sound of the birds. Relieved that it was all a bad dream, Souji wonders why he is now dreaming about his old job. Hearing a familiar voice calling his name, Souji opens the door. Souji responds by calling Tiana's name. In Suji's past life, his goals were impossible to reach, but now Suji's dream life with a cute childhood friend in the countryside is real. Tiana suggests to Souji that they go fetch some water and tells him to come on. Disappointed, Souji mutters, yeah, since he hates hauling water. When Tiana asks Souji to repeat what he had said, Souji responded that it was nothing. Half a year has passed since then, and Souji has learned a lot. Firstly was about himself and how people are born with skills that are said to be 1 in hundreds. What makes one very special is if they are born with 3 skills, making them ridiculously rare. When Suji's parents learned of his abilities, he was warned to never say anything about it as he would certainly get kidnapped. Secondly, Souji also learned the geography of his new world, and how it is being controlled by 5 nations. What Souji noticed that is quite similar to Japan is the climate. Having volcanic soil was a great advantage for Souji, as it is perfect for farming. Being reborn in a land where he can use his old world farming knowledge, Souji believes that he really hit the jackpot. While waiting for Souji, Tiana heard a rustling sound in the bushes nearby. Souji popped out, informing Tiana that a monster had appeared and that she must run for her life. Tiana reminded Souji that there are no longer monsters since Hans the Hunter takes the monsters out regularly. Hearing that, Souji responds, "Oh, right, yeah." While checking through the bushes, Souji saw a huge hole, but then realized that it was a ditch. From what Souji observed, the ditch didn't connect to anywhere, and it also didn't look natural either. When Tiana mentioned that she would be going on ahead, it scared Souji, and he told Tiana that he too would be coming with her. Souji was beyond exhausted, as he felt like his soul was about to leave his body. Seeing Suji's condition, Tiana asks him if he is okay, to which Souji responds that he is. Souji calls Tiana's name, telling her how brutal it is to carry water every single day, and asks if they can't use magic for such a task. Tiana responded to Souji, telling him that if there were an easier way, they'd already be using it. Souji still can't wrap his head around their trips just to get water, as they'd have to walk for 15 minutes to the river and have to do 3 round trips every day. What worries Souji a lot is the possibility of them encountering a monster. Sighing, Souji thought to himself how there must be some way for them to bring water more efficiently. Since wells do not last forever, it made Souji wish that they had a canal. Hearing himself, it made Souji think up an idea of building a canal. If they add a reservoir, Souji believes that they can also breed and farm fishes as well, hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Souji believes that building a canal is the solution to his problem, which is that he will no longer have any trips to the river and everyone's quality of life would skyrocket. Listening to Souji, Tiana looked very clueless, wondering what is a reservoir and quality of life. Souji explains to Tiana about his idea by bringing the river water to the village and building a big reservoir in the forest. Finally understanding Suji's plan, Tiana responds that it would be amazing if that were to happen. However, Tiana tells Souji that it may be impossible. Souji asks Tiana why, and that they should at least think about his idea. Tiana grabs Suji's hand, asking him to come with her. Tiana brought Souji to the old canal site, which she then points to him of the visible marks that were made by a dragon. Tiana explains that long ago, water used to gush out of those claw marks, but a massive earthquake dried up the underground stream. The villagers tried building a new canal, but every time they did, heavy rains would cause cave-ins or landslides or even falling trees, which results in the canal being blocked. Such tragic events always waste years of effort. Tiana mentioned that it is what the village chief has told her. Souji realizes that the ditches he saw near the river were the remains of the failed canal attempts. Tiana responded that it is, as she fully explained the reason why everyone deemed building a canal to be impossible. Souji still does not believe for it to be true, and that they can learn from past failures as he wishes to try, even if it is a long shot. Inside his home, Souji found a book where he learned more about soil. After finishing his research, Souji is certain that he can convince the villagers with it. Tiana visits Souji, calling his name and telling him that she also won't give up, and asks if she can help with his plan. Souji becomes silent for a moment, which he later responds with, "Yeah." Tiana sees the change in Souji, pointing out how he looked like a totally different person. Souji felt hurt as he was reminded that he was used to being unreliable. Visiting the village chief, Souji proposed building a canal. The village chief apologizes to Souji as he cannot approve of his proposal so easily. The village chief explains how they failed too many times before, to which Souji responded that he already heard of that from Tiana. Souji proposes a different method of creating a canal by using the technique called sheet piling. By planting wooden posts deep into the ground, then slotting in a horizontal plank between the posts and repeating the process until it's stable. Souji is certain that with that way, the walls won't collapse and they can dig more safely. Listening to Souji, the village was somewhat tempted to try again, as he can see how the technique may actually work. Before the village chief could say any further, he was cut off by both Souji and Tiana. The two young kids reassure the village chief that their plan will work and that they should try it out. The two plead and request everyone's strength as they need to make the plan work. Souji tells the village that only he can make the village unite. Seeing how the two kids plead, the village chief was shocked, and eventually gave in and approved of their proposal. The village chief informs the two that he will talk to the builders of their plan. Hearing this, the two were beyond grateful. The next day, Souji was woken up by Tiana, giving him the delightful news that their fellow citizens have agreed to help with the canal. Half asleep, Souji responds that he does not want to fetch water and asks for 10 more minutes. However, it then sank into Souji what he had heard, and he immediately went out. While Souji remained speechless, two men introduced themselves as Master Great the carpenter and Master Gerald the blacksmith. The two esteemed masters told Souji that when youngsters like him step up for the village, it is up to the adults to give support and back up. "You mean it?" says Souji as he held back his tears. Souji then shakes his head and tells himself to save the sentiments for later. Souji then explains to the two masters the first things that they needed to do. Master Great was assigned to make posts and planks, which the master vows to make perfectly, not wanting to shame his title as a carpenter. For Master Gerald, Souji asks for him to forge a shovel, which he reassures Souji that he would take care of it. Souji tells Gerald that there's one more thing that he wished to be made. Souji showed Master Gerald a sketch and design, telling the blacksmith that they would also need a hand pump. Both Gerald and Tiana were confused and asked Souji what a pump was. Souji points out how it is a pain to draw water every time. In order to improve it, Souji thought of making a hand pump so that little force would be required to draw water, by running a pipe into the well, then filling up the pump chamber with priming water to remove air. The final move is the handle, which causes the air pressure to force the water up and out. Souji admits to himself that he is no expert and has only read about it once somewhere, and wondered if the information he relayed was too much for Master Gerald. When Gerald stated that the hand pump would be tricky to build, Souji immediately thought that his assumptions were correct. Following his words praising Master Gerald, Souji was able to encourage Master Gerald after being called Oyakata by Souji. Unsure about the sweet, addictive sensation he is feeling, Master Gerald tells Souji that making the pump is tricky, but he never said for it to be impossible. Burning with passion, Master Gerald becomes interested in the device and promises to make it happen. Tiana tells Souji their plan is now starting to shape, and is certain that they will pull it off. In response, Souji tells Tiana, "Yeah." A few weeks later, the village chief officially announced that they are constructing a new canal, and shared that it was Souji who proposed it. The village chief then passed the stage onto Souji to explain his plan. Nervous, Souji wondered if the others would even accept his plan. Remembering his bad dream, Souji decides to step forward and thanks everyone for coming as he firstly shares how he knows that some doubt his proposal. Souji reassures everyone that he won't give up. If there's the slightest chance in making the canal, Souji wants to try it and wishes for everyone's help for the sake of their village's future. After explaining his plan in more detail, one by one, the citizens started raising their hands and wanted to offer help. Others praise Souji for voicing out his plan and are now eager to make their village the best in the whole land. Seeing everyone so motivated, Souji became excited and said, "All right, let's do this." Months have passed since the work on the canal began. Thanks to everyone's help, things were going smoothly. Souji tried lending help but was just told that it was dangerous for kids like him and to leave the labor task to the adults. Souji starts to wonder if there is nothing else he can do. Souji thought of an idea and decided to take care of the fields while everyone was busy. The harvested potato can either be eaten or replanted as seed potatoes. Souji believes that if he can sprout the autumn potato now, it will be ready just in time. Using his skill growth boost, Souji was shocked to see that his plan worked on the first try. However, in doing so, Souji suddenly collapsed. After what he did, Souji was bedridden for 3 days and was officially benched. Using his skill, Souji felt like all of his energy was drained, which led him to believe that his body isn't strong enough to handle the skill yet. Souji didn't think much of that further, as he was now glad that he got time to work on the fields. Using the compost he has been prepping bit by bit, Souji vows to restore the nutrient-starved soil. Grabbing some soil, Souji felt its soft and warm, perfect texture. Souji knows that compost alone won't stabilize the roots, which he then stated that he needed to mix it with the field soil at a 2-to-1 ratio. After finishing on mixing the soil, Souji then tried out his skill, World Seed Storage. To Suji's surprise, the skill looked a lot like a vending machine. All types of seeds were present, from common vegetable seedlings to rare ones. Looking at the prices, Souji thought that it is understandable why grafted seedlings are more expensive, since they resist disease and crop fatigue. After pressing the button, Souji received a message thanking him for purchasing. Taking out the seeds he purchased, Souji was shocked to see that his hand actually went into the screen. Finally obtaining his potatoes, Souji cheered. Souji first cut the sprouted seed potato in half. Once it grows a bit, Souji would then thin the sprouts so only the healthiest ones remain. Next, Souji dug a hole about 10 centimeters deep and planted the cutted potatoes 30 centimeters apart, with the cut side facing downward. Using that method, it will prevent the buildup of toxins and would allow the plant to grow bigger. Souji would then regularly mound soil around the base to prevent sunlight from hitting the tubers. Finishing up his planting, Souji then thought of using his growth boost again, but remembers that he may end up collapsing like before. With that in mind, Souji decides to just wait until harvest and observe the soil instead. 3 months later, Souji wore a confused expression as he didn't expect the potatoes to be so big. Appraising the potato, Souji learned that it was sweeter than Inca no Mezame, which is famous for its flavor, with even higher starch content. Souji is certain that the potatoes would go even sweeter if he creates an overwinter storage and stores the produce there. Souji plans on asking for his dad's help with the rest, as he is certain that he can't harvest all of it alone. Tiana visits Souji, telling him that Gerald was calling for him. Both Souji and Tiana were delighted to see the hand pump Master Gerald made. When Gerald asked how the pump looked, Souji responded that it was incredible and just perfect, as it was exactly what he pictured. Tiana asks Gerald if she can try the pump out, to which Gerald responds, "Go on ahead." With one push from Tiana, water immediately flowed out of the pump. Seeing the water, Tiana was amazed at how she can pull water so easily. Souji gives his heartfelt thanks to Gerald for making everyone's life much easier. "Ha, this was nothing," says Gerald. Souji remembers that he was holding some potatoes with him and gave them to Gerald as thanks. Gerald was shocked as he had never seen a potato that big and asked Souji if he was the one who grew it. Souji responded that he did by borrowing his father's field. Hearing his name being called, Souji turns and sees that it was his father. When Suji's father mentions the canal, Souji becomes worried. However, Suji's worries vanished immediately, as his father informed him that the canal was now finished. Souji was amazed that they finally finished the canal. "Right? Everyone worked so hard," says Suji's father. The village chief then told Souji that the honor of opening goes to him. Confused, Souji explains how he barely did anything. The village chief tells Souji to stop with his nonsense and reminds him that all of it happened because of him. The village chief also mentioned that everyone already agrees with him. Hearing everyone cheer, Souji forces himself to take the stage, thanking them for going along with his selfish idea. But thanks to that, Souji was glad to say that they now made it that far, and announced that it was now time for them to open the canal. Souji tried pulling the rope by himself, which was too tough for a kid like Souji. Souji noticed that someone had grabbed the rope. When turning back, Souji saw that his father and everyone else were now holding the rope. With everyone's help, Souji was able to pull the lever, allowing for the water to enter the canal. Seeing the water flow made everyone happy. What excites them more is that they are also seeing fish. The citizens didn't expect that they would catch fish in such a way. Not being able to eat fish for ages, the citizens thanked Souji for making a trap for them. Yeah, says Souji as he says to himself that he merely copied the method his ancestors used. With his name called again, Souji turns and sees that it was Gerald who told him that the steamed potepo he made was insanely good, asking Souji if he used magic to make the potepo. Tiana also mentioned that she has never tasted a potepo that is sweet and fluffy, telling Souji that he is amazing for making one. Gerald then told everyone to try some, which surprised everyone because of how delicious it was and even asked if it was really a potepo. Souji told the others that he has more, and that they can take as much as they like. Souji was starting to get overwhelmed after being thanked by his fellow neighbors, even asking him to teach them how to grow such potepo. The village chief asked everyone to calm down, pointing out how they are overwhelming Souji. Seeing how the village chief is correct, the citizens apologize to Souji, to which Souji responds that it was fine. The village chief stated that the details can wait and that today is a day of big change for this village, to which he suggested a celebration with a feast. Everyone in town enjoyed the celebration, finally being able to eat grilled fish and get drunk to their heart's content. Souji knows that they are still a long way from an agricultural revolution, but he admits that the success they achieved is a big step forward. Drunk from the food, Souji fell asleep, dreaming of new vegetables as he couldn't wait to go after them. Meanwhile, the village's fence was broken down by a wild boar. The morning after the feast celebrating the canal's completion, both Souji and his father were shocked. The two wondered what had happened as the fence and the plants were destroyed. Seeing the chaos that had happened, it pushed Souji to the edge of despair. Suji's father asks him if he is alright, to which he responds with, "Yeah." Unable to believe that his hard work was easily ruined overnight, Souji saw footprints on the ground. Using his appraisal skill, Souji learned that the footprint belonged to a boar. The second Souji learned where the footprint came from, he told his father that they needed to get home immediately. Souji's father becomes confused seeing how his son was torn earlier, seeing the damage done to his garden, but now has turned frantic. Souji explained that after he checked the footprint with his skill, he informed his father that it was a boar's footprint. Hearing that it came in from a boar, Souji's father finds it strange, as what he knows about boars is that they are timid boars and shouldn't even come near people. Hearing his father's response, Souji responds that it is exactly what makes it strange, for wild boars to risk danger and come down to the mountain. Souji is certain that something is happening that's different from before. Souji's father sees Souji's point and responds that if they assume like the usual, this incident may be dangerous. Souji's mother came out calling for him and telling him that breakfast was ready. Both Souji and his father were frightened when they heard Souji's mother's voice. As Souji's mother saw the chaos, she asked what had happened. Souji immediately told his mother to go back as the boar might still be around. Confused, Souji's mother asks what he meant by a boar. Seeing no time to explain, Souji orders his mother to just return to the house. Inside their home, Souji's mother couldn't believe what caused the destruction of the garden, as she heard that there hasn't been any beast sightings in their village in decades, which made her wonder why now. Souji's father had no answer and believed that the best they could do for now is to report it to the village chief. Before leaving, Souji's father ordered the two to not leave the house. Souji wants to go with his father when his mother stops him, telling him that it is still too dangerous for a child like him. Souji's mother reminded him that when he collapsed during the canal construction, she felt her heart would stop. Souji calms his mother and asks for her to listen, as he pointed out that he only was able to survive during the canal project because everyone helped him. Since all Souji could do was farm, he hated the idea that he couldn't even protect his own fields. Souji is determined to protect everything from farming to growing crops, things he loved doing. With that in mind, Souji asks his father to let him come with him. Seeing how he won't be able to change his son's decision, Souji's father agrees and asks for him to not leave his side. Souji agreed and responded with "yeah." Souji's mother asks for the two to take care of themselves and be safe. In response, Souji told his mother that they will be back. Outside, Souji encountered Tiana and her father. Tiana's father asks her what he always told her, to which Tiana responded with, "Don't wander off alone, it's dangerous." Hearing this, Tiana's father says, "That's my girl." Souji's father turns to Alan asking if his field got hit as well. Alan responded that it wasn't just him, but the whole village got ransacked. Other citizens became curious as to what had happened, but those who were affected by the damage took the question as an insult and asked if they were just there to mock. A man pointed out how it made no sense to him that those affected would blame boars, since nothing like that ever happened before. What made the others angry is the man said that they are blowing the incident out of proportion. The man who got his field destroyed stated that he will not stay quiet after his field's been wrecked. Since others do not believe that a beast would cause the destruction, he asks who else would ruin it, and if it was the man himself who ruined it. This ignited anger towards the neighbors, as the man asked for proof after being accused. The man then responded that maybe those who got affected by the damage were the ones trashing their fields since they are so quick to blame. Adding fuel to the flame, the man in black clothing says, "The hell did you just say?" Alan and Suji's father finally stepped in, stopping the two villagers from fighting. Witnessing the effects that the boar left, Tiana stated how she hated that kind of atmosphere, to which Souji responded that he too felt the same way. Tiana turns to Souji, smiling at him and telling him that she likes them. Caught by surprise, Suji's face turned red as he responded with, "Huh." Tiana explained that she meant about the vegetables that Souji grew, and told Souji that if there's anything she can do to help, he can tell her. Scared by what he heard, Souji responded with, "Ah, yeah, thanks." Everyone in the village received an announcement that all the representatives of each household are said to gather at the chief's house as an emergency meeting was being called. The village chief then told everyone that Hunter Hans will explain the situation, to which the chief turns to Hunter Hans and tells him that he can go ahead. Going straight to the point, Hunter Hans informed everyone that last night, beasts, especially boars, invaded and trampled the fields in the village. The citizens couldn't believe what they just heard, pointing out how such a thing never happened before, and that there has to be some kind of mistake. Hunter Hans has no idea what caused the change of behavior of the beasts, but he could only tell that the beasts have been driven from the forest. The boars have expanded their territory near the village, seeking food and ravaging the fields. Hunter Hans confirms to the people the footprints left in their fields were from boars. Other villagers told everyone to relax and that they can just easily scare the boars and are certain that those beasts would run away. While other villagers believe that the beasts were just cowards, Hunter Hans pointed out to the two villagers that the beasts are desperate and might do anything. If the beasts were to be underestimated, Hunter Hans is certain that the people won't just end up injured but could end up dead as well. Hearing that, the two villagers who joked around became frightened. Hunter Hans is certain that the beasts will be back if they think that the village is their feeding ground. Hans promises that he will do his best to prevent that from happening. However, since going out is dangerous, Hunter Hans suggests that the villagers get their work done quickly and minimize going outside. Hunter Hans then told the chief that he will resume his patrol, to which the chief responded, apologizing for disturbing him from his work. The villagers become worried, thinking that similar things are happening just like back then, wondering if the calamity will happen again, and already assumed that they will starve at that rate. Others were starting to believe the story of what their father had once told them. If things continue, the villagers are scared that they might not make it through the winter, and that they may be facing the end. Souji approaches the village chief, asking him what had happened back then. The village chief tells Souji that youngsters like him may have no clue that the same thing happened before when the village chief was still young. The village chief remembers how all the crops died with none to spare, and all winter they barely scraped by. On top of that, beasts and monsters were riled up and they couldn't even hunt. The village chief believed at that time that they all would really die. The chief sighs as he never expected that he would encounter the same thing again in his life. The chief highly suggests that they need to act before it's too late. Souji responds, telling the village chief that there is something that they can do. Souji suggests mowing the tall grass so the beasts have nowhere to hide. They then would harvest and collect anything they could eat, and make the beasts realize that there's no food in the village. Souji was beyond grateful for Fujimoto for teaching him about pest control in his past life, as Souji is certain that it will help change things. Souji stated that they should do something about the old fences as well. Seeing the torn fence, Souji stops as he becomes nervous. The other villagers suggest that they patch things for now and ask the village builders for help later. When Souji hears his name being called, he turns and asks if they are already done with mowing, commenting how fast the villagers are with their work. Receiving thanks from Souji, the villager responded that it should be them who should be thanking Souji since his know-how keeps saving them. Souji responded that he is just doing his part, and that he is glad that he can help more around the village. The man pats Suji's head, telling him that he is a good kid, and wishes that they had something to give Souji in return. Hearing this, Souji asks if he can have the grass cut. The man agrees to give it to Souji since that is all he wanted. When the man asks Souji what he is going to use it for, Souji responds that it is for preparation for winter. Seeing how Souji is cooking up ideas again, the villagers told him that when the time comes, they will help, and that all Souji has to do is say the word. Souji smiles as he thanks the villagers for their help. Meanwhile, Hunter Hans discovered something that horrified him. Seeing large-scale damage, Hunter Hans wondered if a monster caused such damage. When Hunter Hans looked down, he was beyond horrified when he saw a massive footprint. Hunter Hans becomes concerned, wondering what is happening. In the quiet evening where the sound of nature thrived, Souji, who was by the window and staring at the sky, thought that the village scenery had changed a lot compared to when he had just regained his past life's memories. Souji was very much grateful for everyone's cooperation in making the change happen. Getting off his bed, Souji thought that he needed to work hard to repay all the kindness he had received. In doing his best, Souji ended up falling asleep on the table. Souji woke up from someone's scream and immediately thought that the beast had returned and caused another problem. When Souji checked his window, he saw his neighbors quite relieved and happy that their fields were safe. Letting out a sigh of relief, the sight of his neighbors also brought some relief to Souji. Holding a sheet of paper, Souji then went to his father as he wanted to talk more about the fence. When Souji and his father went out, they were left speechless by what they witnessed. Gerald, who was covered in dirt, told Great that he was now ready. Responding to Gerald, Great highly advised him to hold it steady. Great rammed his whole body at Gerald, who was also using a piece of wood to protect himself. Confused, Souji asked his father what the two skilled craftsmen were doing. Also clueless, Souji received a response from his father that he too would like to know himself. When Great and Gerald finally noticed Souji and Abel, they called out Suji's name and asked Abel if they could borrow his son. When Abel agreed, said Souji, as he didn't expect that his father would agree. Abel reassured Souji that the two men wouldn't eat him, and then reminded Souji how he had wished to speak to Gerald as well. Abel then excused himself, telling Souji that he would now be heading to the fields. Sad? Souji called out to his father. Souji was shocked when he learned what the two craftsmen were really doing. A durability test on lumber. Grat pointed out how there were different kinds of wood. Gerald continued where Grat left off, telling Souji that they were testing which wood would make the strongest fence. Using such a reckless method to learn which wood was appropriate, Souji asked them to stop, as he was very much concerned for their well-being. The two then turned to Souji, as they suspected the reason why he had come looking for Gerald was that he had an idea in mind. "Tada," said Souji as he smiled and showed his idea to the two. Great immediately recognized it as a new fence, as well as a gate. What Gerald noticed was that Souji's suggestion didn't have any iron at all and was using only wood. "Yeah," was Souji's response. Gerald was very much disappointed upon realizing that there was no work for a blacksmith. Seeing Gerald's reaction, Souji apologized to him. Seeing how sad his friend was, Great tried to comfort him. Souji explains how iron is expensive and also takes time to process. However, with wood, they are able to reshape it easily. One more point Souji added is that wood can easily be replaced if it were to break. Souji then mentioned that for the gate, for the finer details of the mechanism, they will be using iron for it. Hearing that excites Gerald, and he tells Souji that it truly makes sense. Souji states that a fence with no gaps and a gate that locks beasts out is his new idea, and asks the two craftsmen if he can count on them again. Hearing that, Grat and Gerald tell Souji that every time he gets handed an impossible task, they always pull it off and that they will do it again. Bumping their fists, Souji was very grateful towards the two men. Excited, Souji mentions that he will go and have a talk with the village chief. Worried, Gerald tells Souji to be careful since there are still beasts roaming around. In response, Souji said, "Okay." At the village chief's home, Hunter Hans showed the chief a huge feather and informed him that during his patrols, he also found parts of the forest destroyed. What worries Hunter Hans are the unnatural huge footprints that were also present, along with feathers of abnormal size. Hearing that, the village chief responded that it is what he has feared. Surprised, Hunter Hans asked the village chief if he knew something. The village chief asked Hunter Hans not to tell anyone, as it would surely cause a panic. As the village chief was about to tell Hunter Hans what he thought was in the forest, he was cut off when Souji made his presence known outside. The village chief then asked to let Souji in. Souji excused himself and told the village chief that he would be coming in. Seeing Hunter Hans inside, Souji asked if he was interrupting something. The village chief told Souji that it was fine and asked what the matter was. Souji came to propose clearing more land around the village. Hearing Suji's idea about clearing, the village chief turned to Hunter Hans and asked about his thoughts on it. Hunter Hans responded that the area near the village was safe enough, but he questioned if there was really a need for it right now. Souji explained that merchants and woodcutters use the road to the river, and that sooner or later they would complain about the danger of beasts. Souji also pointed out that in summer monsters become even more active, which means that moving now is the most perfect time. Hearing Suji's reasoning, the village chief approved of it and even offered to spread the word himself. This excited Souji, and he thanked the village chief for his approval. Before excusing himself, Souji mentioned that he would prepare the tools immediately. Both the village chief and Hunter Hans commented on how Souji is one restless boy just arriving at the village chief's home and leaving in a second. The next day, with the chief's call, everyone gathered and started clearing the land. While helping out, Souji and the two craftsmen also prototyped the fence and the gate. After clearing up the weeds, Souji was shocked to see the huge difference from before, commenting on how the forest now looked completely different. Everyone didn't expect that they would finish the task in 3 days, praising the villagers' drive. Hunter Hans too was very pleased with the result since it would make patrolling much easier for him, and he thanked everyone for it. Souji was beyond grateful for what everyone had done and thanked them as well. Souji picked up a bundle of weeds, planning on taking them. Tiana offered to help after seeing Souji pick up so many weeds. Shocked, Hunter Hans asked Souji if he planned on taking all of it. Souji responded that there was something he wanted to try, for which he then thanked Hunter Hans. With Souji leaving, Hunter Hans commented on how Souji was truly a busy child. Pleased to see a very active kid, the village chief stated that they too couldn't fall behind either. Tiana asked Souji what the weeds were for. When Souji responded that it was for a bed, Tiana looked very confused at first. Tiana then assumed that Souji wanted to sleep on grass beds, thinking that it sounded quite fun. However, Souji corrected her and clarified that it was not for him but for the fields. Souji explained that during the off-season, the grass helps nature prepare the soil, and by layering the weeds, temperature and humidity stay stable. The action makes the worms and microbes thrive. After listening to Souji, Tiana became more excited and suggested that they tell everyone about it. From what she heard, Tiana believed that by spring, all of their fields would be bursting with vegetables. Of course, said Souji. Farming stops during winter, but that only makes spring more exciting for farmers. A month later, both fences and the gate were now finished. The villagers were happy that they could now put their minds at ease and enjoy their new year. Although it was a celebration, the village could only drink water. The villagers then praised Souji, calling him their MVP, as he was acknowledged by everyone as the person who carried them through the year. Others even gave Souji the nickname Vegetable Doctor. The village chief, who was looking for Souji, finally found him. When Souji asked what was wrong, the village chief responded that he must reward Souji for his service to the village. Souji was thankful and asked what kind of reward he would be receiving. The village chief mentioned that the reward was something that Souji loved the most. "Don't tell me," said Souji, as he was shocked when the village chief confirmed his guess, saying that he would be receiving a field. With his hands trembling, Souji raised them up and cheered. Excited and very eager, Souji wondered what he should do first in his own field. Just thinking about it made Souji wish that spring would come sooner. Hearing the news, Tiana told Souji that his reward was truly amazing. Souji responded that it was and asked the village chief if he could really keep it. The village chief reassured Souji that the field would be all his. Meanwhile, a mysterious being with wings was flying across the sky. During winter, when farming pauses, Souji had been tending everyone's fields by weeding. With the soil meant for spring, Souji hurriedly unrooted all the weeds, cursing them for stealing nutrients and telling them to be gone. With nothing to do, all Souji could manage was weeding. Bored, Souji couldn't wait for the vegetables in his own field to grow. "Working hard in the cold, huh?" said the village chief, who visited Souji. Surprised, Souji didn't expect a visit from the village chief. The village chief apologized to Souji for having him pull weeds in his field as well. The chief handed Souji a pouch, telling him that though it was not much, there were coins for his troubles. Not expecting a reward, Souji told the village chief that he wasn't doing it for money, but still accepted it and thanked the village chief. Every time Souji helped someone, it turned out the same, him receiving something from them. Souji ended up receiving coins, food, and all sorts of things. With his actions, Souji was surprised that he actually made a profit by accident. In Suji's past life, he too received many gifts whenever he visited his relatives as a kid and would always be welcomed warmly. Souji smiled as he felt both nostalgia and warmth. This excited Souji even more, making him determined to grow delicious vegetables and share them with everyone. Souji used his skill, World Seed Vault, as he wanted to choose what type of vegetable seed to plant. However, his face turned sour as he remembered that he couldn't start farming until around March. This meant that summer crops like tomatoes, eggplants, and cucumbers were good. Although tomatoes were the type that would grow well, they also hogged nutrients, got diseases, and clashed with other crops. Souji then thought of parsley, as it had a scent that repelled bugs and also covered the roots to keep them moist. What made parsley also great was that it could help the other three grow. Coming up with a perfect plan, Souji decided to plant parsley in between the plants. Completing his purchase, Souji then told himself that he had to save money for the crop rotation for the next season. Souji told himself to be patient as he really wished to buy more seeds. With a bright smile, Souji was very much looking forward to getting back into the field and starting planting, very eager for spring to come. When spring finally came, Souji could no longer hold back his joy, as he ran toward the field and saw that the field was prepped. Souji then started plowing and sowing. After a month, Tiana visited Souji, asking how the veggies were doing. Tiana didn't expect that Souji would be sitting in the field and sensed a bit of sadness. When Tiana asked what was wrong, Souji turned, showing his crying face and telling Tiana about the crops. As it turned out, Souji's crops grew so well that it moved him to tears. Unsure how to react, Tiana asked Souji if he really was crying over them. Curious, Tiana asked Souji why there was a stick pole in the ground. When Souji responded that it was meant for the vegetable, Tiana was confused and asked, "For the vegetables?" Souji explained that vines climb the poles and grow upward, and when the fruit gets heavy, they snap. So the pole and string support the weight. Listening to Souji, Tiana commented that it sounded like a lot of work, to which Souji responded that she was correct. But it was also very important. Before Souji could continue speaking, he was cut off when Tiana asked him what vegetable he had planted. Nervous, Souji explained that it was a plant his father had bought from a traveling merchant, and that it was a gift when he got his field. Although Souji had no clue about it, he pointed out that the plant was something he had seen before. Suspicious of Souji, Tiana asked him if he was hiding something. "Not at all," said Souji. Patting Suji's head, Tiana was certain that even if Souji were to keep secrets, it wouldn't be anything bad. Embarrassed, Souji asked Tiana not to pat him since they were only of the same age. Grinning at Souji, Tiana pointed out that though they were the same age, she was still taller than him. Tiana remembered that she still had to fetch some water and then excused herself, telling Souji, "See you later." "Yeah," Souji responded, as he was quite down knowing that he couldn't share with everyone about his skill. Souji also thought of sharing his seeds with everyone. But if outsiders were to find out about it, he knew that there was a possibility that he might get kidnapped for it. With so much land at his disposal, it gave Souji an idea. Even without his skill, they could still clear the forest to expand farmland. Souji became excited, thinking that a bigger harvest would make the village wealthier, and could even give them the opportunity to sell produce outside. This new idea made Souji decide to talk about it with the village chief. When Souji shared his idea with the village chief, he was shocked when the village chief refused it. Confused, Souji asked for an explanation as to why the village chief did not like the idea of expansion. The village chief apologized to Souji, saying that he could not give him an explanation at that moment and strongly advised him not to go near the forest. Seeing the chief closing his door, Souji was both shocked and puzzled. Hunter Hans tried to comfort Souji, telling him not to take it the wrong way. Hunter Hans then went inside the chief's home as he told Souji that he still had matters to discuss with the village chief. Not expecting such a response from the chief, Souji panicked. Hunter Hans tried to speak with the village chief, pointing out how he was quite harsh with how he had responded to Souji. The village chief told Hunter Hans that if he hadn't responded that way, Souji wouldn't have listened. The chief was certain that when Tiana asked what was wrong, Souji turned, showing his crying face and telling Tiana about the crops. Seeing the chief's point, Hunter Hans responded, "True." Before anyone else noticed, the village chief wanted them to plan for that in the forest. Later that night, Souji was in his bed as he couldn't sleep after what had happened. Souji wondered why the village chief wouldn't give him a reason, as the chief would always give him reasons before. Souji then remembered that before winter came, the village chief and Hunter Hans often had meetings. Remembering the village chief's advice, it proved to Souji that something was really inside the forest. Souji theorized that it might be related to the boar den that ravaged the fields before winter, or something worse, a dangerous beast or a monster. If that was the case, Souji was certain that Hunter Hans would have dealt with it already. However, Souji still couldn't shake the feeling and believed that there was something in the forest that he had no clue about. Souji already knew that if he were to ask his mother, father, or the adults, they would just tell him to stop. Souji also didn't want to ask Tiana, knowing that she would tag along out of curiosity, which was very dangerous. Left with no choice, Souji decided to see the mystery for himself. When morning came, Souji sneaked his way out of the house while everyone was still asleep. On his way to the forest, Souji thought that if he left at dawn and came back before dark, all would be fine and no one would suspect that he went missing. The first thing that came to his mind was how dense the woods were, as it looked like something could jump out at any second, which made him tell himself that he had to be careful. However, Souji also knew that giving up without knowing the reason was something he could never accept. Taking a step forward, Souji was now a small distance away from the den of a mysterious beast. During his journey, Souji found a stream and drank from it. "Ah, that hits the spot," said Souji as he felt refreshed by it. Looking back, Souji noticed that he had gone pretty far already. What surprised Souji was how smooth the process was, and he was quite certain that he would be back before dark. Hearing a rustling noise, Souji immediately became nervous and mumbled. Meanwhile, people from the village were frantically looking for Souji, calling out his name and reassuring him that they were not mad, but just worried. Worried for Souji's safety, Chloe couldn't control her emotions as she slowly broke down. When Celia tried to cheer and encourage her, Chloe asked her what would happen if Souji never returned again. Seeing everyone's distraught expressions, Hunter Hans approached Chloe and asked her what was wrong. Seeing Hunter Hans, Chloe immediately told him what the problem was, which surprised him, and he asked everyone what they meant by Souji disappearing by the time they woke up. Muttering to himself, Hunter Hans suspected that Souji's disappearance might be related to what had happened yesterday. Hunter Hans remembered Souji mentioning that he would handle the matter himself. Understanding the problem now, Hunter Hans decided to help out and suggested that they split up. Hunter Hans also suggested that everyone search by the river while he took the forest. Calling out Hunter Hans's name, Tiana asked him if there was anything she could do. Hunter Hans responded and told Tiana that there was, and it was the most important job. Hunter Hans bent a knee and told Tiana to wait for Souji at the village and asked her if she could do that. "Of course, I'll wait right here," said Tiana as she bid everyone good luck in searching for Souji. Waving everyone goodbye, Tiana mentioned that she would be counting on them. With everyone gone, Tiana's brave act vanished as she began to worry for Souji, praying and wondering if he was okay. Deep in the forest, Souji was now covered in sweat as he was being chased by a large boar. With the boar's peculiar look, Souji asked himself what was up with it. The large boar had red eyes, a flaming mane, and hooves. From what the boar looked like, Souji was certain that it was not a normal boar, praying that his guess was wrong, that the boar was a monster. Witnessing how the large boar easily destroyed a tree, Souji was in total disbelief and muttered, "No way, this is insane." What immediately went through Suji's head was that he had to escape and immediately climb something sturdy and tall. In his panic, Souji tripped, which led to him falling over and injuring his knees. No longer able to run and overcome with fear, what came to Suji's mind was that he was already at death's door. Before the large boar could do something horrible to Souji, a large beast suddenly appeared and rammed itself into the large boar. With the beast being large, it ended up killing the large boar in an instant. Turning its attention to the injured boy, the beast only stared at Souji. Staring back, Souji first wondered if it was a beast or a dragon. With his legs seriously injured, Souji knew that running away was not an option he could choose. Scared, Souji wondered if his second life was going to end right there. Regret sank within Souji as he was just getting started with farming. All of a sudden, the beast spoke and asked Souji if he was hurt since he was crying. Shocked, Souji didn't expect the beast to be able to speak. The beast asked Souji if it had scared him, whilst changing its form to be similar to that of a human. The beast then asked if she now looked less scary with her changed form. Confused, Souji muttered, "A girl?" The beast girl then hugged Souji and used her powers to heal his injury. Souji too couldn't hide how surprised he was upon seeing his knee healed. The beast girl was relieved to see that the wound was gone. Still trying to piece together what was happening, Souji asked the beast girl if she understood human speech. "A little," said the beast girl as she changed the topic and asked why a villager was deep in the forest. Souji was surprised to learn that the beast girl knew of the village, to which the beast girl responded that she would watch sometimes. Hearing another rustling sound, Souji became frightened, showing signs of trauma from the boar attack. The beast girl sensed another human's presence and decided to hide. Hunter Hans appeared as he was drawn by the huge noise and found Souji asking him if he was okay. Seeing Hunter Hans, Souji immediately ran toward him. Wearing a frightened expression, Hunter Hans asked Souji what he was doing deep in the woods. Hunter Hans then told Souji that he had made everyone very worried. Seeing the giant mess, Hunter Hans was even more frightened and told Souji that a giant monster had been there. After Souji apologized, Hunter Hans then told him that his lecture would be given later and that they needed to leave immediately. Souji asked Hunter Hans to wait, but Hunter Hans made it clear to Souji that they did not have the time to dawdle, since there was a probability that they could die if they stayed much longer. The beast girl appeared and told Hunter Hans that she had already driven off the monsters, making the area safe. Confused, Hunter Hans asked the girl who she was. Pointing out the girl's strange outfit, Hunter Hans also asked her where she came from. Souji stepped in between the two and told Hunter Hans that the girl in front of him was a dragon. Showing a blank look, Hunter Hans then told Souji that it was bad manners to tease an adult. Hunter Hans then turned his attention to the girl, asking her where her parents were and pointing out how scary the forest was. What made Hunter Hans even more curious was why a girl was in such a place in the first place. There, said Hunter Hans as he patted the beast girl's head, annoyed. "Humans," said the beast girl as she instructed them to step back. Transforming herself into a dragon, the beast then asked Hunter Hans if he now believed her. Souji commented on how the dragon looked fluffy up close, while Hunter Hans was too shocked to show any emotion and responded that he now believed her. Walking their way back, Souji noticed that there were no other animals present and asked why that was. The beast girl told Souji that there were not long ago, but the animals fled as they were afraid of her. Ordinary animals didn't come near her, unlike the monster from earlier. Souji thought that the beast girl might be lonely. Trying to engage in a conversation, Souji asked the beast girl what she did during winter, to which the girl responded that she slept. What the beast girl liked most of all was that there were lots of foods around. Souji became more excited when the beast girl told them that they had now arrived at her den. Listening to the beast girl as well, Hunter Hans realized something, and thought that it now made sense. Both the girl and Souji were confused after hearing Hunter Hans. Hunter Hans asked Souji if he still remembered when the beasts raided them, which he then pointed out wasn't just from the hunter. Hunter Hans explained that the beasts changed their feeding ground to escape the dragon. "Really?" said the dragon, as she stated that it would be a problem. Hunter Hans asked the dragon when she planned on leaving the forest. If the dragon were to stay in the forest for long, Hunter Hans was certain that they would have last year's trouble, or even worse. After thinking for a moment, the girl responded that she would not be leaving right away since she also needed a place to live. Thinking that the beasts feared the dragon, Souji came up with a great idea. Hearing this sparked curiosity and wariness in both Hunter Hans and the beast girl. Mentioning a great idea, Souji suggested that the girl come live with them in the village. Souji is certain that the beasts and monsters won't come near the village with the dragon living with them. Souji's idea also gives the dragon girl a home, which is the dragon's main reason for staying in the forest. The girl asked if it is really okay, pointing out that she is not human. Hunter Hans becomes nervous upon hearing Souji's idea and suggests that they head back to the village and ask the village chief about it first. Okay, got it, says Souji, but what surprised him was how Hunter Hans agreed to his idea, as he thought that Hunter Hans would oppose it even more. Souji thanked the dragon girl for saving him earlier and asked if it was okay for him to visit her again. You'll come again? Says the dragon girl, as she didn't expect that Souji would venture out into the woods again. Waving to the girl, Souji promised that they would meet each other again. The girl smiled, waving back to Souji as she was still very confused as to why Souji would want to see her again. On their way back, Souji remained wary of Hunter Hans's behavior. Trying to engage in a conversation with Hunter Hans, Souji asked why Hunter Hans had been on alert the whole time. Responding to Suji's question, Hunter Hans told him that he was making sure that the dragon wasn't following them. Souji muttered, looking very confused as to why Hunter Hans would say such a thing. When Hunter Hans suggested to Souji to give up on the dragon, Souji remained expressionless as he was able to confirm what Hunter Hans was thinking. Souji asked Hunter Hans for the reason, to which Hans asked Souji to listen carefully. Hunter Hans pointed out that the dragon isn't like monsters that act on instinct. Dragons understand human speech and can mimic their form. Truly an unknown creature. When Hunter Hans noticed how the dragon girl didn't flinch at the sight of a weapon, it gave him the impression that dragons do not see humans as a threat. Seeing how the dragon disguised itself as a human, Hunter Hans guessed that the dragon might be planning to attack the village. Souji told Hunter Hans that the dragon healed his injury and had already known about the village. With that in mind, Souji pointed out that if the dragon were to attack the village, she would have done it long ago. Leaning towards Suji's desire to bring the dragon to the village, Hunter Hans asked Souji if his parents would get killed due to his decision. That's, says Souji, but he was then cut off by Hunter Hans, who asked him if he was certain that such a scenario wouldn't happen, and on what grounds Souji had for Hunter Hans to believe that such a scenario wouldn't happen. Hunter Hans made it clear to Souji that inviting the unknown also means accepting the risk. Clenching his fist, Souji felt frustrated as he knew that Hunter Hans was also correct. However, Souji felt that the dragon girl was not the type of being who would do such a thing. If anything, Souji believed that the dragon was rather lonely. When Hunter Hans told Souji that they would be heading home, Souji agreed. Souji knew that trying to convince Hunter Hans would be tough, and wondered who else he could talk to about the dragon. When Souji returned to the village, both Chloe and Abel immediately ran toward him and hugged him tightly. Both parents asked Souji not to disappear on them ever again. The two asked Souji if he was hurt and were very grateful after confirming that Souji was fine. Souji apologized upon realizing that he had made his parents and everyone worry after leaving without any word. Scruffling his head, Abel told his son that he would be getting a long lecture when they got home. Chloe told Souji that there was already someone waiting for his return. Eh? Souji muttered as he was shocked when his clothes were suddenly pulled. Asking who it was that pulled him, Souji turned but was instead told not to turn around. Frightened, yes, Souji responded. Realizing that the person behind him was Tiana, Souji apologized to her for making her worry. You better be, said Tiana as she mentioned how she kept thinking that something might have happened to Souji. Yeah, Souji responded. With tears in her eyes, Tiana stated that everyone, including her, was really worried. Tiana asked Souji not to vanish again and that he must listen to the adults. I will, said Souji. On his toes, Souji patted Tiana's head and expressed how sorry he truly was for making them worry. Tiana asked Souji why he turned around, pointing out that he could now see her crying. With Tiana bawling, Abel stated how Tiana was really crying now. On the other hand, Chloe was quite amused seeing Souji on tiptoes. Shocked, Souji did not know what to do and tried to calm Tiana down but was failing miserably. Hunter Hans interrupted the conversation, asking Souji if he was now ready to go. Yes, sir, Souji responded. The two then left, reporting what had happened to the village chief. Now facing the village chief, Souji was told that those who break the rules and make everyone worry must be punished. Unable to look the village chief right in his eyes, Souji responded, Yes, I'm sorry. For Souji's punishment, the village chief decided to confiscate Souji's field. Hearing that, Souji asked the village chief to wait and reconsider the punishment, pleading not to have his field taken away. Souji muttered when the village chief told him that he was just kidding. The village chief admitted that he was also at fault for not explaining the situation properly, and decided to just let it go with that. Souji was beyond grateful for being let off easy, telling the village chief that he was a saint. Changing the topic, the village chief asked Souji what he saw and heard in the forest. Upon listening to Suji's story, the village chief found comfort in knowing what creature was lurking deep in the forest. Hearing the village chief's response, Souji asked the chief and Hunter Hans if they both already knew. Hunter Hans shared how he had found huge footprints and feathers a while back, and immediately reported it only to the village chief. With the village chief already suspecting that the clues left were from a dragon, Souji believed that the village chief might know more than anyone and might possibly hear him out. Souji asked the village chief if it was possible for them to welcome the dragon to the village. Hearing Suji's suggestion made the village chief think about a dragon in their village. Shocked, Hunter Hans reminded Souji again how dangerous his idea was. The village chief told Hunter Hans to wait, reminding him how stubborn Souji was and how they had witnessed it for themselves. The village chief suggested to Hunter Hans that they at least hear Souji out. With the village chief wanting to listen to what Souji wanted to say, Hunter Hans was left with no other choice but to follow along. The village chief also revealed that when he was a child, he had heard tales about dragons of great power that took human form and lived among them. The village chief thought that such a story was just a fairy tale, and never expected that such stories might be real. Surprised, Souji asked if there were dragons that had always lived in such a way. The chief responded that it was true but pointed out that they had branded such dragons as threats. Since Souji had actually spoken with one, the village chief wanted to ask his opinion and what he felt during that interaction. Souji explained that he really couldn't see the girl as bad, but rather he felt that the dragon was lonely. Souji also pointed out that if the dragon he met hated humans, she could have left him to die but instead helped him. Souji also mentioned that the dragon already knew of their village and would even watch it sometimes from a distance, which Souji believed made sense as to why the dragon was very curious about humans. "I see," said the village chief. Taking Suji's word that the dragon was indeed friendly, the village chief still couldn't ignore the stories he had heard at face value. Assuming that the village chief was refusing his idea, Souji thought that he had to really give up on it since the village chief did not agree. The village chief admitted that he could not deny that the idea was worth a second thought. Hearing this, Souji asked if they could really bring the dragon in, but the village chief clarified that it was not what he had said. The village chief pointed out that as long as the dragon stayed in the forest, the raids on their village would continue. Monsters and beasts wouldn't listen to them, but for a dragon that could speak, the chief believed that it might just be what they needed. Shocked, Hunter Hans asked the village chief if he truly was accepting the dragon girl. Before the village chief could give his decision, he first wished to speak with the dragon. The village chief intended to learn the dragon's true motivations and feelings through an honest conversation, to see whether the dragon was what Souji said she was. Deep in the forest, the dragon girl was just sitting all by herself. The dragon girl was shocked when Souji suddenly appeared, stating that he had finally made it. "You really came back," says the girl, as she couldn't believe that Souji had returned yet again. Souji told the girl how he wasn't sure if he could ever find the place again after just one visit. Extending his hand out, Souji mentioned how, just like he promised, he would come and see the dragon girl again. After the two touched the tips of their fingers, the dragon became curious and asked what the word promise meant. Souji explained the word by his own understanding, that it is something that is decided together and then kept. Just the thought of keeping something together excited the dragon, and she believed that the promise was truly amazing. "Yeah, that's right," says Souji, as he was thinking about how the dragon truly looked like a normal girl. Coming out of the bushes, the village chief stated, "Oh, so you're the one." Beside the village chief was Hunter Hans, who apologized on everyone's behalf for intruding into the dragon's den. "Another human?" says the dragon girl, as she was quite confused. Facing the dragon really close, Souji suggested that they continue where they left off. Hearing this, the dragon girl was quite confused. To start off their conversation, the dragon girl was asked for her name, to which she responded, "Nah." Souji then introduced himself afterward and proceeded to introduce Rald and Hans. Souji also mentioned how they all lived in the same village. Upon hearing the names of Souji and the others, the dragon still looked very confused. Seeing the dragon's reaction made Hunter Hans and the chief wonder if dragons did not name themselves. Curious, Souji asked what the dragon's name was. The dragon spoke and stated that she did have a name and that it was Melisha, the name her mother gave her. Hearing the dragon's name surprised everyone. Souji then asked Melisha if her mother was a member of the dragons that lived with humans. Souji turned to the village chief, asking him if he knew her. The village chief clarified that he had never met Melisha before, but he had heard rumors. Seeing how Melisha interacted with humans kindly, the chief was able to confirm the stories he had heard about dragons and humans. Melisha shared that it was her mother who taught her how to speak, and even praised her for learning so fast. Listening to Melisha, Souji was able to conclude that Malisha was very special even among dragons. Suji's heart raced as he realized how reckless his actions were, and how he would have died already if he had encountered another dragon. Souji was very grateful for meeting Malisha instead. The village chief honestly told Malisha that he had been in doubt, but after their meeting the chief was certain that Malisha had good intentions and goodwill. The chief informed Malisha how relieved he was to be able to speak to her. Going straight to the point, the chief asked Malisha if she wished to live among them. Malisha remembered the stories her mother had told her about living among humans and even thought that it sounded fun. However, what worried Malisha was the thought of other humans being afraid of her. Souji pointed out that Malisha already looked like an ordinary girl, which wouldn't pose any threat to the village or scare the citizens. One thing Souji pointed out and told Malisha was that the village needed her. Still worried, Malisha once again asked if it was alright for her to join them, to which Souji responded, "Yeah." Showing a wide smile, Malisha stated how happy she was. The chief then brought up the obvious problem for Malisha to blend in, and that was her wings. Hunter Hans agreed with the chief and believed that they must cover them somehow. In just less than a second, Malisha was able to solve the problem, hiding her wings in an instant. Surprised, Souji asked Malisha if she had just hidden her wings. Blushing, Malisha explained how she got embarrassed if people started staring at her wings for too long. The chief commented that dragons were quite the mysterious beings. Since the problem was resolved, Hunter Hans guessed that there were no more issues at hand. Hunter Hans mentioned the elephant in the room, and that was Malisha being a dragon, a being that could use her powers at any time to take what it wanted. Hunter Hans clarified that it would be hard for them to trust Malisha, especially with the kind of power she wielded that she did not have much control over. Listening to Hunter Hans, Souji thought that being under control was similar to a promise. To ease Hunter Hans's worries a little, Malisha promised that she would not harm them, and hoped that her word was enough for everyone to believe her. The chief was shocked, as he didn't expect Malisha to know what a promise was. Malisha brought up how Souji also kept his promise with her and came back to visit, which made her very happy. Malisha learned that promises were very precious. Hearing Malisha out, the chief guessed that making a promise was Malisha's way of showing her sincerity. The village chief then asked for Malisha to hear him out, giving her an order not to hurt anyone, as well as to hide her powers and follow their rules. As for the promise, the village chief made it clear that if the promise were to be broken by Malisha, then she would never approach humans again. "Very well," said Chief Rald as the two had come to an understanding. Showing a big smile, Malisha thanked Chief Rald for allowing her to live among them. Souji also thanked the chief for making her idea happen. The chief then asked Hunter Hans if he had brought any string with him. "String?" said Hans, as he was quite confused as to what the chief would want with a string. Taking a string out from his clothes, Souji then offered it to the chief. Souji was then ordered to tie the string around Malisha's wrist. Hearing the instruction, both Malisha and Souji were quite puzzled as to the purpose of the string. Curious, Souji asked the chief what the string meant. Chief Rald explained that the string was proof of Malisha's promise. Receiving the string from Souji as proof of her promise, Malisha stated that they were all her very first treasure, which she would cherish. Souji told Malisha that it was just a normal string, and that she didn't have to treat it so preciously. Malisha refused to acknowledge Souji's words and told him that for her, it was a treasure. Hunter Hans then asked Chief Rald if he was certain of his decision. The chief told Hunter Hans that Malisha had feelings and a heart no different from theirs. For that reason, Chief Rald chose to believe Malisha. The chief stated that if only they could fully trust her from the start, then such things wouldn't be needed. Extending his arm, Souji told Malisha that he was looking forward to being with her. They shook hands and immediately returned to the village, where Malisha was greeted by everyone. To avoid public panic, the three who were present decided to keep Malisha's identity a secret when bringing her to the village. The story Souji and the others came up with was that Malisha was a lost girl. Upon hearing Malisha's supposed background, everyone in the village then accepted her. Seeing Malisha up close, Tiana thought that she looked like a foreigner and was very eager to be friends with her. Both Abel and Chloe then greeted Malisha. Hugging the dragon, Chloe stated how Malisha must have felt lonely all by herself, after which she offered Malisha a place to stay. When Souji told Malisha that the people she was speaking to were his parents, Malisha was surprised. "I see," said Malisha, as she stated how happy she was and commented that Chloe smelled a lot like her mother, which was very nostalgic to her. Chloe found Malisha very cute and expressed how she had always wanted a daughter. Until Malisha's family arrived, Chloe decided to count Malisha as one of them. The day concluded with Malisha staying at Souji's home. Souji didn't know then that meeting Malisha would shape the future of their village. With lots of food placed on the table, both Chloe and Abel welcomed Malisha and told her that they were celebrating her welcome party. Staring at the food, Malisha looked horrified and asked herself if the thing in front of her was actually food. Souji suggested to Malisha that she try it out, taking pride in what they had grown themselves. Just thinking of the vegetables that were grown by Souji, Militia decided to pick one up and took a bite of it. Souji became nervous as he vaguely remembered that dragons were like carnivores, which made him ask himself if dragons even ate vegetables. Militia suddenly stopped and showed a blank facial expression. Seeing Militia's reaction, Souji felt embarrassed and hurt, as he assumed that Militia's reaction meant that the food wasn't good. However, to everyone's surprise, Militia told them that it was delicious. Souji was very much relieved, as he was certain that he would have felt devastated if Militia were to call his vegetables bad. Militia then approached Souji, asking him if he truly grew the vegetables. Souji first told Militia that she was too close and informed her that the process was hard to explain in one sentence. Souji told Militia that he was currently growing summer crops, and asked her if she wished to help as well. "Of course," said Militia, as she felt very much delighted to participate. When Souji was about to inform Militia that they would begin tomorrow, Militia interrupted him as she wished to start right away. Souji pointed out that it was already quite late, and that they would not be doing any work that night. Seeing how the two spoke, Abel commented on how Militia and Souji got along very well. For Chloe, it felt like Souji had gained a little sister, which she found lovely. When they noticed how Militia was swaying back and forth, they asked Militia if she felt sleepy. Militia responded with, confirming that she did feel sleepy. Chloe happily suggested that they share a room together. However, Chloe was quite puzzled when Militia suddenly turned and was about to go outside, telling everyone that she now felt sleepy. Abel then pointed out that the place Militia was headed to was outside. In a panic, Souji immediately grabbed Militia and offered his bed instead. Calling Militia a sleep rascal, Souji then said goodnight to both his parents. Inside the room, Souji lectured Militia about how humans act, and one of those things was that humans do not sleep outside. If Militia were to sleep outside, she would surprise everyone. Souji explained to Militia that if she ever felt sleepy, she could sleep in his room. Listening to Souji, Militia asked him to confirm if it was really all right for her to sleep in his room. Receiving Suji's confirmation, Militia agreed to sleep in the room and promised not to make such a mistake again. With Militia understanding her mistake, Souji felt a little relieved and suggested that they now go to sleep. Militia was quite puzzled when she saw Souji preparing another bed down on the floor, after which she asked him if he would not be sleeping beside her. Souji explained that since Militia looked like a girl, sleeping together in the same bed would not look good. Souji was shocked when Militia suddenly pulled him and mentioned how the bed felt so fluffy, after which she asked Souji to sleep with her. Surprised, Souji asked Militia not to yank him in such a way. However, what Souji didn't expect was that Militia was already fast asleep. With a smile on her face, Militia muttered, "Mom, I'm not lonely anymore." Souji was left with no other choice but to abide by Militia's request, and slept on the other side of the bed. When morning came, Militia was the first to wake up, after which she woke Souji up so that they could grow vegetables. Still feeling sleepy, Souji didn't expect that Militia would literally wake up right as the sun was about to rise. Excited, Militia asked Souji what she should do first. The first thing Souji pointed out and told Militia was that buckets do not go on their heads and that they are used to carry using their hands. The next thing Souji told Militia was that she would be fetching water using it. Before Militia went out to fetch water, Souji tied Militia's hair and told her that she was now all set. "Oh?" said Militia, as she looked confused about what the purpose was for tying one's hair. Souji explained that since Militia's hair was very long, tying it up helped so that her hair wouldn't get dirty. After Militia told Souji that she now understood, Souji then suggested that they head out. At the canal, Militia asked Souji about it. Responding to Militia's question, Souji informed her that it was a canal and that the whole village had built it. Turning her attention to the fence, Militia asked Souji what it was. Souji then proceeded to explain what a fence was and its purposes. Upon learning that Souji and everyone else had built so many things inside the village, Militia couldn't help but feel amazed. When Souji brought Militia to his field, Militia was shocked as she saw plants that she had never seen in the forest before. As Souji was about to instruct Militia on what they would be doing next, he was shocked when Militia suddenly lifted the bucket over her head. Souji asked Militia to wait and informed her that they would not be pouring water from above. When Militia asked why they did not do that, Souji explained how different crops had their own growth stages and needed different amounts of water. Souji then mentioned that too much water on the plant might end up hurting them. Guiding Militia, Souji first suggested that Militia feel the soil. After noticing that the soil felt a little dry, Souji explained that for summer vegetables in the ground before they bore fruit, it was their task to prevent the soil from drying out. Since the soil was dry, Souji informed Militia that it was the perfect time to water them. Showing Militia how to water the plants, Souji explained that they must not pour right from above and that they must run water between the rows so it soaks the soil deeply. Souji then asked Militia to try his method. Thinking about how hard it all sounded, Militia still agreed to do it. After pouring the water gently, Melisha felt happy when Souji informed her that she had done it successfully. Souji then suggested to Melisha that she take the other side while he took the other. Turning around, Souji was shocked and immediately called for Melisha's attention. Souji told Melisha that the eggplant was blooming right at that moment. Happy, Souji shared how the first flower always got him, and believed that they would be getting some gorgeous fruit. Despite Suji's explanation, Melisha was still having a hard time trying to understand everything. Looking at the first flower, Melisha pointed out how the flower was moving. Giving Melisha a thumbs up, Souji informed her that if she got hooked on farming, she would understand how he felt and might feel it as well. "I'll try my best," said Melisha. Looking at the plant, Melisha smiled. Souji then suggested that they go back to watering, which Melisha happily followed. After watering the plants, Melisha asked Souji what was next on their agenda. Souji informed Melisha that the next step was to help the plants grow stronger by giving them a side shoot pruning. By leaving the side shoot right below the first flower, they would have to pinch the others so that nutrients would focus on the top two stems. After explaining to Melisha how to perform the side shoot pruning, he then told her that it was her turn and suggested that she be gentle. While muttering the words gentle and careful, Melisha was successful in following Souji's guide. With their task all done, Melisha asked Souji when their vegetables would be ready, and if they were going to be ready tomorrow. Souji explained that the process was not that fast, and the earliest would be about a month from now. Though Melisha was not thrilled about it, she was still excited at the thought of tasting the vegetables real soon. Melisha suddenly hid behind Souji after hearing something. To Souji's surprise, he saw that there were others headed toward them. Souji greeted everyone and asked what the problem was. Tiana, who led the group of girls, greeted Souji with a good morning and mentioned that they wished to speak to Melisha. After introducing herself, Tiana mentioned that she wished to be friends with Melisha and asked that they play together. Melisha was shocked when she heard Tiana speak. Upon realizing that the girls did not mean her any harm, Melisha thought that it sounded good and agreed that they become friends. Pleased to meet Tiana, Melisha expressed how glad she was that she had gained a new friend. The other girls then surrounded Melisha, admiring her hair color and asking that she come visit their homes and share more about herself. Souji wished to join the girls but was told right away that it was Girls' Day and that he was not allowed. Though Souji was excluded, he still couldn't help but feel worried. Souji took it upon himself to act as Melisha's guardian and keep an eye on things. Souji also thought that if anything were to happen, both Chief Rald and Hunter Hans would also be held accountable. Peeking through the window, Souji justified his actions and clarified that he fully trusted the girls but was just taking precaution. Melisha was asked if Souji had tied her hair, to which she responded that Souji did so that her hair wouldn't get dirty. Thinking how Souji was much more considerate than how he looked, the girls thought of making Melisha cuter. Listening to the girls' conversation, Souji wondered if he should accept it as a compliment or an insult. Stepping away from the window, Souji thought about how the girls seemed to be having fun, which was a good thing. Souji was surprised when his name was called by someone. Containing his rage, Alan told Souji that he was peeking in Tiana's room. Nervous and frightened, Souji was asked by Tiana's father what he was actually doing. Stuttering, Souji tried to explain himself. However, Souji chose to apologize instead and run away. Angry, Alan followed Souji, telling him to come back. Hearing the commotion outside, some of the girls took a peek and wondered if who they saw were Souji and Tiana's father. Tiana told her friends to not mind the people outside and that it was fine. Focusing on the more important matter, Tiana asked Meledia what kind of hairstyle they should try out next. As the girls tried different hairstyles on Meledia, they ended up becoming jealous of her hair color. When asked which country she was from, Meledia silently looked away. Seeing Meledia's reaction, Tiana was shocked as she stated that she had figured it out already. Tiana instantly assumed that Meledia was someone like a princess. Since Meledia's ears were different from others, and because she couldn't talk about her situation, Tiana felt bad and mentioned how it must be tough on Meledia bearing all that worry by herself. Seeing the photo, the other girls immediately believed that Meledia was indeed truly a princess. The girls then reassured Meledia that they would keep her secret. Meanwhile, at the chief's house, the villagers asked him if what he shared was truly the truth. The chief reassured them that it was the truth that Meledia was an elf called the Guardian of the Forest. The chief also mentioned that the guardians like Meledia rarely showed themselves, but in Meledia's case she got separated from her kin. The chief shared how elves favored peace and shared a culture close to humans. With that reason, the chief decided that there was no danger in welcoming Meledia into the village. Both Gerald and Grat felt bad, as Gerald assumed that Meledia was a monster child. Grat thought the same and felt ashamed of how he doubted a child like Meledia. The chief told the two that elves usually lived quietly, in which he then asked the two to keep what he revealed confidential for Meledia's sake. Raising their hands, everyone said, "Of course," agreeing to the chief's request. Meanwhile, Hunter Hans, who knew the truth, witnessed how the chief smoothly lied to all of his citizens and commented how the chief was someone whose depths could not be read. Back at home, Souji was very much exhausted and said, "That was awful." Souji explained the situation to Alan, who was worried about Meledia. After telling the truth, Alan decided to let Souji off the hook. Hearing a knock on the door, Souji informed the person outside that he was coming. The moment Souji opened the door, he was caught off guard after seeing Melania with a new hairstyle. "Well," said Tiana. The first comment that came from Suji's mouth was that the hairstyle wasn't very farm-friendly. Tiana got in between and told Souji that it was exactly what his problem was. Tiana suggests that Souji try saying something a little sweeter for once. With a bright smile on his face, Souji told Melania that the hairstyle suited her, and that she looked very cute. The two girls cheered. Tiana pointed out how Souji told Melania she looked cute, which she found as a great praise. Melania agreed and expressed how thankful she was to Tiana and her friends for giving her a cute hairstyle. Souji told the two how glad he really was that they've become friends. Tiana blushed when Souji told her that she was a big sister that they could truly depend on. Tiana was caught off guard when Melania kept calling her big sis. Gaining confidence, Tiana told Melania that she wasn't that great, but Melania could definitely rely on her. Souji jokingly told Melania that Tiana's reaction was what they call tsundere. Both Tiana and Melania looked confused and asked Souji if it was some foreign term. Hearing a cracking sound, Tiana was frightened and asked what that was. Both Souji and Melania left, promising to Tiana that they would check it out and asking her to watch the place. Said Tiana, as she didn't like the task of watching. When Souji finally arrived at the source of the noise, he asked a man if he was alright, in which the man responded that he was. However, the wheels of the carriage were now busted, which left them with no other choice but to haul everything by hand, which would take more time. Souji told the man that he would gather more people. Staring at the logs, Melania straight out picked a couple of them up and told them that she could carry it, and to leave it up to her. This act surprised Souji and left the others very puzzled. After piling up the logs, the man was very impressed by Melania's strength but was not that surprised upon learning that she was an elf with great power. Hearing the man almost mentioning the word elf, Melania asked what he meant by it. Shocked, the man told Melania to just forget it. The man patted Melania's head, glad that the young girl had got some muscle, and was grateful for her help as they'd finished their task much faster. Meanwhile, Souji was sweating bullets and his stomach was in knots, but after witnessing everything, Souji thought that helping out might be a good way for Melania to fit in. Excited, Melania told Souji that she wanted to be a kind big sister like Tiana, which led to her decision to help a lot. All of a sudden, both Souji and Melania were surrounded by a bunch of people, confusing them both. Others heard from Grot that Melania was a real MVP yesterday. Gerald hated to ask so soon but still wondered if Melania could help at his place. Another citizen also mentioned that since his back hurt, he was wondering if they could ask Melania to take care of some stuff for them. Smiling brightly, Melania told everyone that she would happily help everyone, and that she would do all of their requests. From running and getting water to pulling out their vegetables, Melania was able to finish everything. Exhausted, Souji was finally relieved that the harvest was finished. "We did it," said Melania. When the villagers came, they praised the two kids for their hard work and apologized if the task was heavy and needed more strength from them. Souji told the old couple to not worry, and that they can tell him if they needed anything again. Meletta received thanks and was told to just treat the villagers as her real grandparents and to visit anytime. While Souji was carrying a bunch of potatoes, Meletta told him how everyone was so kind and that she loved the village. "Yeah, me too," Souji responded. To their surprise, rain started pouring. Souji then told Meletta that they had better get going and just run towards home. At their room, Souji was quite surprised by the heavy rain, which was much more than usual in their time of the year. If things continued, Souji thought that he might need to do some countermeasures. Everyone wouldn't be able to do major work, and Souji really wanted the tasks to be done before the rainy season, so they didn't have much time. Souji thought of a new idea and planned to try it out immediately. After digging around the crops, Souji had finally finished a perimeter open ditch. Confused, Melania asked what it was. Souji was very glad that Melania asked and explained that it was a trench deeper than the furrows, dug around the field's perimeter. When soil can't absorb fast enough and water pools between rows, the open ditch gives the water a path to escape. Though it was makeshift, Souji believed that it was better than nothing. Souji was very eager to teach everyone how to make it the right way. Showing a sad expression, Melania told Souji how she wanted to be a lot like Tiana and him, a person who was very useful. As the rain started pouring heavily, Souji stated that it was now fully rainy season. Stretching her arms, Melania guessed that she could no longer help out everyone. Both Souji's parents warned him to not go outside as it was currently dangerous. After responding okay, Souji thought that the field prep was done and that they had the upstream sluice closed to prevent flooding, which meant that they were now very much prepared. Due to the rain, Souji also thought that they might be free for a while since no watering would be needed. Sensitive to sound, Melania informed Souji that someone was here. Confused, Souji laughed as he couldn't believe that someone would visit their home in such heavy rain. Meanwhile, a voice outside kept calling out for help. The chief allowed the man to enter his home, in which they then learned that the man was from the village downstream. Coming all the way to their village in such heavy rain, the chief told the man how it must have been so tough on him. Hunter Hands asked the man how bad the damage was. The man shared that when the rain poured down, the river overflowed and more than half of the houses got flooded. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. Everyone managed to evacuate to higher ground, but most of their stores were ruined. The man begged the chief and his village for help. "I understand," said the chief as he told the man that they could spare a little food and some materials, and that they could also lend them a few men. Hunter Hands pointed out that if the river road was out, they would have to take the mountain path, which he offered to lead the way. Hearing this, the man first asked if it was really okay. The man thanked the chief, promising that they would not forget their kindness. Gerald, who was carrying a ton of shovels, stated that it was every shovel that they had. Gerald also mentioned that they could make more, and that they did not need to hold back and should just take what they needed. Great also offered the extra buckets they had made. Great stated that he could fix things, but he could not fix people, which led him to ask them to watch themselves out in the heavy rain. Members of the village, along with Tiana's father, were called upon to help the village. Both mother and daughter were worried for his safety. Tiana told her father to come back soon, asking him to promise it. Tiana's father asked Abel that if anything happened to him, he would be counting on Abel. Abel asked his friend not to say such a thing as it was bad luck. Hunter Hands informed everyone that the rain was easing up, suggesting that they should head out while they could. Seeing their fellow villagers leave, they asked them to be careful and to do their best. Souji was very much frustrated, stating that in such a situation, being a kid meant he could not do anything. After some time, the weather started to get much worse, as strong winds hit the windows of Suji's home. Noticing that their villagers were late, Souji hoped that everything was okay. Chloe wanted to think that it was just taking longer than expected. Glancing at the window, Meledia saw Tiana's dad and informed Souji and his parents about it. Meledia also mentioned that she was only seeing 2 people, and that Tiana's father was one of them. Turning their attention toward the window, Abel saw his friend and told Meledia that she was right. Everyone inside immediately went out, approaching Alan, Tiana's father. After asking Alan if he was okay, Abel then asked what had happened. Alan revealed that on their way back, aside from the 2 of them, everyone else had been hit by a landslide. This news shocked everyone. "No way," was muttered by the people present. Alan explained in detail that on their way home, Hunter Hands took the rear, and the 2 of them were up front. All of a sudden, a roar came from behind them. Hearing this, a villager asked what had happened to her husband. The woman's child became scared and asked her mother what had happened to her father. When a villager suggested that they go get their friends, Gerald mentioned that he would grab the shovels, and asked that they hang on. The chief then asked everyone to calm themselves, and pointed out how it was very dangerous for them to move now, as there was a possibility that another slide could happen at any time. Enraged, Gerald asked the chief how he could stay calm. Gerald then asked the chief if he really wished for them to do nothing and leave their friends out there, buried. "That's not what I'm saying," said the chief. Listening to the adults, Souji understood how everyone felt. If the rescue party also got caught in another incident, that would only add more lives on the line. Souji believed that the chief was trying not to let the matter spiral any further. Staring at her bracelet, Meledia decided to take action and ran away. Shocked, Souji asked for Meledia to wait up. Worried, Tiana called out to Souji and Meledia, asking them what they were going to do. After catching up to Meledia, Souji asked her why she had suddenly bolted away. Meledia told Souji that they were going to help the others. Surprised, Souji asked how they would be able to help the others, and if Meledia planned on using her dragon powers. Souji was about to mention the consequences if Meledia were to reveal her true form, but Meledia stopped him and instantly transformed into a dragon. With her large wings, Meledia flew away to save everyone. Finding Meledia's bracelet on the ground, Souji muttered Meledia's name. Calling Souji's name, Tiana asked if what she had seen was real. Meanwhile, the villagers who went out to help were now stuck and covered with mud. "Stay with me," said one villager and asked for the tools they had. However, it was no good since the others were buried under the slide. Hunter Hands asked everyone to calm down and mentioned that they needed to back away for now. Some did not like Hunter Hands' orders, stating that they could not leave their friends pinned down. A villager who had been trampled by soil told the others that he would be fine and to just fall back. Another villager mentioned that it was just dirt, and that if they all dug they would have the other villagers out in no time. Hunter Hands asked everyone to think, telling them that they would most likely die out there before help came to them. Everyone's attention was then drawn up to the sky, wondering what it was, and if it was a monster. Recognizing Melicia's dragon form, Hunter Hands wondered why Melicia was at their location. Afraid of the dragon, the villagers who were covered in dirt asked the others to just run away and to forget about them. Melicia started crawling the dirt away. As Melicia stared at Hunter Hands noticed and wondered if the dragon had really just cleared the path for them. Panicking, the villagers were now running away, afraid that they were going to die. Seeing a villager running toward a cliff, Hunter Hands tried telling the man not to run that way. Before the man could realize where he was headed, he had already jumped off the cliff. Hunter Hands knew that he was not going to make it, but still jumped over, trying to save the man. With the two jumping over the cliff, they were left speechless when they noticed that they were no longer falling. The villagers who were safe saw that it was Meledia who saved Hunter Hands. Seeing the wings on Meledia's back, a villager realized that Meledia was the monster they had seen. After saving Hunter Hands and the villager, Meledia tried to explain herself but could not find the words. Patting Meledia's head, Hunter Hands stated that another slide could happen while they stood there talking. Hunter Hands told everyone that they could deal with the girl once everyone was safely back in the village. A villager agreed and decided to head back for the time being. Hunter Hands then asked those who could move to help dig out those who were buried. Hunter Hands also ordered those who were injured to ask for Meledia, as she could heal them. After the rescue mission, Hunter Hands and the others finally returned along with Meledia, who was now smiling, calling Meledia's name. Tiana revealed that Souji and the chief had told her everything. Tiana told Meledia that it did not matter to her what she was and what her story was, as all that mattered to her was that Meledia had helped them. A villager told Meledia that he had been half dead, but now he was walking around, and that it was all thanks to her. All of the villagers made it back to their homes because of Meledia. Another villager mentioned that they did not know what a dragon was, but that they still wanted to be friends with Meledia. Stretching her arms out, Chloe asked Meledia to come home with them and mentioned that they were family now. Clenching her fist, Meledia mentioned that she had broken their promise. Hunter Hands told Meledia that she had broken her word. However, Meledia did it knowing that she might lose her place just to save everyone. Hunter Hands then thanked Meledia. The chief then spoke up, stating that if promises mattered that much, then Meledia could make a new one with all of them. The chief then ordered Souji and Tiana to give her that. "Okay," said both kids. Calling Meledia's name, both Souji and Tiana told her that from then on she would stay in the village with them. Meledia remembered that it was the promise string that had snapped. Tiana tied it back together with her hair ribbon. Meledia felt touched and hugged the two kids. Both Gerald and Grat were also touched, holding back their tears. A few days later, the man from the other village visited the chief, thanking him again for their help, and shared that they had managed to pull through thanks to the chief's help. "I'm glad to hear it," said the chief. The man then mentioned that some of his villagers said they had seen a huge figure flying overhead. The chief responded and told the man that it was most probably storm clouds playing tricks on them. With that in mind, the village chief shared his thoughts of shoring up the mountain path while the others were cleaning up the landslide. As the guy who went rolling down the slope, Hunter Hands stated that he was up for it. Hunter Hands mentioned that if not for Myleisha, he would have been dead. Souji was shocked to hear that someone like Hunter Hands could fall. Seeing it as their opportunity to help, both Gerald and Grat stated how it was finally their turn to pull their weight. Souji thought that if they could extend the pest control work a bit further out, then it would be the perfect chance for the plan that he had been drawing up. Souji enthusiastically suggests that they seize their chance to get things moving with the development. The village chief remembers that Souji had spoken about that before and thinks that he had given up. Souji admits to having been shut down last time, but since the reason for that is now right in front of them, he believes that they can finally make it work. Souji points out that they can't stop landslides completely, but he believes that they can build a route that is much safer. Hunter Hands is very supportive of Souji's plan as long as they don't cut into monster territory. Souji also adds that if they clear some forest, they might be able to create more fields around the village. Hearing that, the village chief thinks that he has already figured out what Souji's intentions are, and that what Souji truly seeks are the fields. The village chief tells Souji that they already have enough land for everyone to eat, which makes him wonder why Souji is pursuing more farmland. After a moment of silence, Souji gives his answer, telling the chief that it is his dream. Souji wants to use farming to make the village richer. In the future, Souji hopes to spread what he knows and their techniques beyond the village. In order to achieve that, Souji wishes to try many different things now and build up experience, though he admits that he currently cannot do much on his own. The village chief thinks that Souji has encountered a strange kind of fate, since if he hadn't set his sights on developing the place, he would never have met Meledia. Upon hearing mention of fate, Meledia shares how much she likes that idea. Souji adds that now that they have Meledia, they will have tremendous help in blowing the rocks and big trees to bits. Upon hearing the word help, Meledia states that she would simply go and smash those things. The village chief stops them and asks Souji what the travelers would say if they ever saw that. Souji understands what the village chief is trying to imply and immediately becomes discouraged. Hunter Hands tries to brighten Meletia's mood, telling her that just her presence in the village alone already helps keep the beasts away. Meletia is pleased to hear that and says how glad she is. Grateful toward the children, both Gerald and Grat suggest that they roll up their sleeves for Souji's big dream and for the village's future. They then voice their opinion that they should clear the collapsed mountain path first. Just like that, the whole village slowly begins to move toward developing the land. The first task is cleaning up the mess caused by the landslide, which goes smoothly. The village then starts surveying where to cut the new road. During that process, Myledia excitedly grabs Souji's hand, dragging him along with her. Myledia shares that she had found a place when she was looking for somewhere to live before, and she believes that they can grow vegetables there. As Souji quietly appraises the soil, he learns that the soil is rich and that the slight slope means that the drainage is good. When Souji is about to agree with Meledia, his attention is suddenly drawn elsewhere. Noticing his gaze shift toward the bamboo, Meledia asks Souji if he wants it. Souji responds that he does and mentions that once they process it, it will be incredibly useful. After discovering the bamboo, Souji plans to ask Grat about it when they get back. What worries Souji is that bamboo has shallow roots and makes landslides more likely, which leads him to flag the area as a risk. After all that, Souji, along with everyone else, decides to begin the development. But before they do that, the family first plans on harvesting all their crops. Seeing how excited the kids are, Chloe asks them if they have been waiting for the harvest all this time. Meledia had kept bugging Souji before, repeatedly asking him if the vegetables were ready. After many years had passed since Souji died in his previous life, he is very happy to have finally met his dear eggplants again. After harvesting a large amount of vegetables, Chloe becomes curious and asks how to eat them. Souji shares his knowledge with his family, explaining that the red ones are tomatoes, the green ones are cucumbers, and the purple ones are eggplants. Souji tells his parents that both tomatoes and cucumbers are good when eaten raw and suggests that they try them out. After each of them takes one of the vegetables, everyone is surprised at how sweet the tomatoes are. Abel is also surprised, as he does not expect the crisp texture and burst of juice coming from the vegetable. Souji then states that if they grow it themselves, it will taste completely different. Souji's prized eggplants get all soft and melty once they are cooked, and he is very eager to try them out for dinner. Since they have picked a lot, Souji's parents suggest that they share some with the others. Souji thinks that it is a good idea. Summer vegetables are loaded with nutrients that help with fatigue and keep one from burning out in the heat, which makes them perfect for the development work they have coming up. Souji thinks about packing the vegetables in baskets and letting them chill in the river so that the cold juice and nutrients will sink into their overheated bodies and make them taste even better. Souji stops himself from talking as he realizes that he has gone into full lecture mode once more and is afraid that his parents will call him out on it. Abel tells Souji that they are the ones who asked him to keep his skill secret, and he asks whether what they asked of him has been holding him back. Surprised, Souji asks his father where that is coming from. Chloe then tells Souji that if what they asked is getting in the way of his dreams, he should tell them about it, promising him that they have his back. Surprised and moved, Souji thanks his parents and tells them that he will think about it. Souji admits that if he truly wants the village to grow more smoothly, having his skills be known publicly would be much better. However, Souji can't earn on his own, thinking of himself as weak and having no stamina to speak of. Souji believes that he would become a burden on his parents, always being protected by them. Noticing Suji's troubled expression, Meledia asks him what is wrong. Souji is surprised, as he didn't notice that Meledia was already standing in front of him. Meledia tries to cheer Souji up, telling him that as the big sister she will listen. Hearing that, Souji thinks that Meledia is slowly starting to sound like Tiana. Souji tells Meledia that he is where she used to be, wondering if it is okay to tell everyone about his secret. Meledia suggests that Souji choose a path that he won't regret, which is the decision she made back then. If it is something Souji decides for himself, Meledia tells him that he can feel at peace about it. Hearing that, Souji agrees, as he now understands that it is all about what he wants. When Meledia asks Souji if his troubles are now over, Souji responds that they are, and that it is all thanks to her. Grabbing Suji's hand, Meledia tells him that it is time for them to go. Curious, Souji asks where they are going. Dinner with everyone, says Meledia. Meeting up with Tiana, the two are scolded by her as she tells them that they are very late. Since the event is also Meledia's first time meeting everyone, Tiana first introduces her to Lily. Meledia is so excited that she makes a mistake and thinks that the woman's name is Lily. The woman laughs and tells Meledia that her name is Anna, and that the baby she is carrying is Lily, Tiana's cousin. Hunter Hands then approaches the two, telling them that they made everyone worry after vanishing so suddenly. Anna suddenly elbows Hunter Hands, revealing that they are husband and wife, and that Hunter Hands is so overprotective that it is hard for them to go out freely. Melisha asks if cousin also means family. Tiana tells Melisha that she is correct. Lily holds onto Melisha's finger, and Melisha is very pleased to meet the little girl. Melisha is then told that once the child gets bigger, they hope that the two of them will play together. Melisha agrees and promises that she will. The village chief thinks that the dinner is already ready and asks if everyone is present. With Meledia there and having a goal they all can work toward, the village chief is certain that a new wind is about to blow through the village. The development will take years to achieve, but if they stand together, then they will be able to see it through. After enjoying the food and the celebration, time passes for everyone, and most especially for Souji, who has now grown a little. A kid returns home, making her presence known to everyone that she is now back. The kid, who is revealed to be the young Lily, is greeted by Souji and is asked if she was practicing her archery. Lily is very happy and pleased to see Souji, and she then shares how her father had told her that she is a genius with a bow. Curious, Lily asks Souji if he is working in the field again. Souji responds that he is rebuilding the ridges before sowing. Lily tells Souji how helping him is something she cannot help but do since she is a genius. Souji feels reassured and accepts Lily's offer. After receiving a hoe from Souji, Lily asks him what she should do. Souji gives instructions, saying that first they have to mix and mulch and till the soil. Next is to string up a guideline for the furrow, and third is to heap the outer soil inward. Those steps are already too demanding for the likes of Lily, and she ends up getting exhausted. Souji praises Lily for doing a good job and thanks her for helping out. After experiencing Suji's work for herself, Lily tells him how it must be tiring to do such work every time. Souji smiles and responds that for his adorable vegetables, the tiring work is nothing at all. Now that the tribute to the Lord is finished, Souji can return and grow vegetables freely. Curious, Lily asks Souji why they give away the vegetables that the whole village grew together. Souji responds that they can live in peace because they are protected by the important people. Seeing how important people want their vegetables gives Lily the impression that their produce is worth a lot. If they ever sell their harvest to someone else, Lily is certain that they would become rich. With a disappointed look on his face, Souji reveals that he has already tried doing what Lily suggests. After years of study, Souji has learned that in their world, selling vegetables is incredibly difficult. Established merchant houses have long-standing farm contracts, and even if someone like Souji from a tiny village with no connections tries to sell vegetables, he would simply get lowballed. During one of the negotiations Souji had, he met with a merchant, reassuring them that the quality was top grade. However, the merchant thought that vegetables were merely a garnish for meat, and that they were all the same. Souji was then advised to at least study market prices before coming to them. This enrages Souji, and he demands an apology from the merchant. Seeing how Souji reacts frightens Lily. Although she still does not fully understand what Souji is trying to say, Lily can tell that he is somewhat fixated on it and worried about it. "That's part of it, yeah," says Souji. When Souji was young, he told his parents that he was going to reveal his skill to everyone in the village. Having the full support of his parents, Souji also shares that before he reveals his ability, he must first train himself in using it. Listening to the conversation, Malaysia asks what kind of training he means. Seeing that Souji has made up his mind, both Abel and Chloe continue to cheer him on and decide to prepare meals to build Souji's strength. Pulling weeds with all his might, Souji's first training is to build enough stamina so that he does not collapse when using growth promotion. To achieve that, Souji tries various exercises, which include running laps around the village. Unfortunately, Souji finds out the hard way that he cannot lift heavy stones like Meledia can. Trying to learn how to protect himself, Souji proceeds to swing a hoe with full force but ends up getting flung around due to the recoil. Souji then tries learning archery from Hunter Hans but still ends up failing. Souji's next attempt is learning magic from Tiana, but he faces yet another failure. After all the times he has tried, it makes Souji wonder if he has even made any progress at all. On his 15th birthday, Souji finally unveils his secret to everyone in the village. Showing his otherworldly seed storage, he surprises both Gerald and Grat. After demonstrating his other skill, growth promotion, Souji explains that he has had these skills for a long time and apologizes for keeping quiet about them. Souji expects that he will receive some type of backlash for his decision, but he is surprised when the villagers react differently, wanting to know more about his skills instead. The villagers express their curiosity and their amazement when the seeds Souji pulls out from nowhere actually sprout. Seeing such a skill for the first time, the villagers think that it is truly incredible. The village chief tells Souji that their village has a dragon living among them, and he points out that surprising them would take quite a lot of effort. Hunter Hand says that Souji has been helping from behind the scenes all along and thanks him for it. Seeing how understanding his fellow villagers are, Souji feels extremely grateful toward them. The village craftsmen are very curious about Suji's ability and ask him how it works and whether he can also produce metal as well. Finding it all very fascinating, Grat asks Souji if he has other skills aside from what he has already shown them. That is how Suji's skill becomes public knowledge, though only within the village. In the discussion that follows, just as with Meledia's true identity, it is unanimously decided not to carelessly tell the secret to outsiders. Souji wants to spread Earth's delicious vegetables even more, but if he goes into business, he will have to explain where he got the seeds. This would lead to his skills being exposed, putting his family and the village in danger. Leaning against a wall, Souji wonders what he should do. Both Tiana and Millie appear, telling Souji that Lily is getting creeped out. Tiana notices how the field now looks neat and tidy, to which Souji shares that Lily helped him out a lot. Lily notices something between the two of them and suddenly grabs Meletia, asking her to watch her practice with her bow. Lily is then told not to run so suddenly since it is very dangerous. Souji sees that Meletia is now acting like an older sister, which reminds him of a certain someone who once liked being called that. Tiana notices Souji looking at her. She then asks what he means by that. Hitting Souji rapidly, Tiana tells him that he keeps on growing, and before she knows it, Souji has already passed her in height. As Souji tries to calm Tiana down, their hands touch one another, which surprises Tiana, as she never noticed how big Souji's hands have become. Tiana then tells Souji that she was just joking, and knows that Souji will not be the same since they are no longer kids. Souji then asks Tiana if she still remembers what she had said to him before. Nervous, Tiana wonders what he is referring to. Souji then mentions that while having his head patted, he was told that although he keeps secrets, Tiana believes that Souji is not the type to ever do anything bad. Hearing that, Tiana feels a bit nostalgic. Souji then thanks Tiana for believing in him and waiting all this time. Unable to look Souji in the eyes, Tiana then mentions that she trusts him, and since she also likes him, she will be rooting for him as his childhood friend. Hiding behind the wall, Lily giggles as she senses that something is going on between Souji and Tiana. When Meledia asks if it is a nice vibe, Lily asks Meledia if she really does not get it and comments on how she is so behind the times. Their conversation is interrupted when Tiana sneaks up on them. asking Lily what she is doing out there. Meanwhile, a man and a woman are very pleased to have another huge harvest for the year and comment that the vegetables from the village are so beautiful. Hearing the commotion, the Lord asks what is happening. The man is surprised to see the Lord. When asked where the produce came from, the man reveals that it came from Kasat village on the northern edge. The Lord realizes that the man is referring to that village. The man is surprised, since the area used to be so overgrown but has now been transformed all at once over the last few years. The butler mentions that with such beautiful crops being produced so consistently year after year, he wonders if there is some kind of secret behind it. Hearing that, the Lord becomes intrigued and wonders if there really is a secret behind the crops.